Got to kick it off with the dead game. We got something new though today. We got Topo Chris. He's about to explain how to do deadlifts. This will be like an instructional video. You guys have always been commenting and saying you guys want to know how we deadlift, how we set up, where we grip, always wanting tips, you know. And so here's a video that we're gonna give back and show you how I deadlift, how Chris deadlifts, and you can take what we show you and do your own thing. So let's get it. But we got to kick it off with that dead game first. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna show you how I set up, where my feet are, where my grip is, where I kind of align like my ass, where I like to, how far I like to bring it up, where my shoulders are. I'm gonna show you my technique. It might be a little different than Chris's. I don't really have a lot of coaching background at all, or how do you say it, any degrees or things like that that Chris does. So he has hands-on experience and he has book knowledge as well. And I don't have the book knowledge, but I have a lot of hands-on experience. So I'll take you through what I go, how I set up. So here it is. So first, I like to have like my feet kind of cut off through the smooth and the knurling. So I'm kind of right in between, like my toes are right here. And then next, I like to get, I don't know, about like a thumb's distance, maybe a little less from the knurling as well. Get my grip. So I'm basically like just outside my shins right here with my hands. So when I lift, I'm just outside my shins. So I'm staying in tight. I don't want to be super wide because I feel like I lose power if I'm all the way out here. So I want to get it as close to my body as possible. So here, then before I lift, I sit my ass down. I sit my ass down like as far as I can pretty much get it, you know, that feels comfortable and not out of position. So gripping the bar, sitting my ass down, and then as I'm sitting my ass down, I'm pulling the bar into my shins, into my legs. Again, like keeping the bar as close to my body as possible so I can just generate the most power. Because the farther, for me, like the farther the bar is away from my body, whether it's like my arms being far out, the bar being out in front of me, I lose like power and strength. So I want to keep that shit as tight to my body as possible. So I'm gripping the bar close to my body here. I'm bringing the bar close before I lift. And then as I lift, I'm bringing my lats back, like tightening my lats and pulling that bar like towards my body so it doesn't get away. So that's basically kind of how I deadlift. I probably miss a few things and Chris will show you his technique. And I'll maybe ask him some questions of why he does that, or, oh yeah, that makes sense. And you know, I'll kind of critique him and ask him questions that I don't know. But I'll show you my movement again, like kind of full speed right here.
For his technique, he kind of touched on like that's how he does things, it's kind of how he learned. I learned it through the schooling, but also the experience too. The good thing about Big Boy is he's successful doing what he was doing, so then he does what I do, but he did it at like it's kind of hard to explain, but he doesn't know the terms, but your body finds it successful, so it adapts to whatever he's going through. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take Jason through this. It's a little bit easier for me to explain. I can adjust his form too because I actually just started coaching him. So basically I'm just gonna have Jason do 1, 2, 3 reps by how he does his regular form, and I'll just start going over the points that I wanna do to teach him how to do it better, okay? So just go through 3 reps right now. So the first thing I want to touch on is with deadlift, a lot of things that happen is that we start kind of focusing on what it looks like and not what it actually is doing. So someone wants to look at their back and they're like, that person's back looks rounded, so they must be using a lot more back. That's not usually the case. When you start really getting into the elite lifting, you'll start realizing that your body position is all based off of not what it looks like, but what it feels like. Obviously, it's kind of like beating a dead horse, but we'll teach him how to do things a little bit better core-wise and balance-wise, because right now he's actually rotating his hips back. His anterior pelvic tilting is actually, it makes his core a lot longer than he wants it to be. That makes it weaker. Longer means weaker because it gets skinny. So when he goes down, so firstly I'm just going to touch on the feet first, because that's where a lot of that is actually deriving from. So when we look at his feet, just like Big Boy said, he kind of put his feet a little bit farther than Jason would, because his legs are a little bit longer. Might not look like it because he's 350 pounds. But so scoot back a little bit. So you always want your toes to basically cut off the foot. Cut off the foot or cut off the toes. So scoot more. So when you're looking down, so wherever you think your toes are through your shoes, that's where you want that to cut that off, right? So basic information on deadlift is that I don't want to start going outside the norm at the beginning. You want to kind of just do the normal thing and then go how you feel. That's how Big Boy's done it. He was smart about it, so he kind of adjusted as years went along. And honestly, like ever since I started coaching Big Boy, I haven't had to change his form at all. With deadlifts, obviously he's deadlifting 900 pounds. So when I look at that, he has his feet around underneath his hips, so he basically like a jumping position. So that's where power's at. It's not the same as a squat. You don't want to treat it like a squat. So here you see how his feet are pointed forward. So that's one of the bigger problems too that people have. It's one dimensional, so one plane. So once he pushes his knees forward, you see those more vertical muscles, the quad, the hamstring. Those are the two muscles that engage the most. He's missing that whole group of muscle groups that are like right back in your glutes, your abductors, all those things like that. So what I want to do is actually point my toes out slightly. Okay, now when I come down, they're going to be tracking where his toes are going, so then he'll actually engage his abductors. So you've seen the machines, we call them good girl, bad girl machines. So if you sit down and kind of do these things, the good girl, bad girls, that's the abductors and adductors. So this one is for the abductor. So when he squats down now, squat down and grab the bar, like all the way, like you're about to do. Now you see that where his knees are, he actually are going out a little bit more. Don't like actively push them out, just let them go where they want. So now they're actually in a position now that the abductors are engaged, so they're actually distribution of power. So I want to distribute all that power throughout the legs. Don't sit like that. So you don't have to force it, okay? So when we're here, it's only just a little bit, so when I come down, all I want to do is naturally track. That's all I'm looking for to do. So now I can feel my glutes engaging, I can feel that power spread throughout those muscle groups. So don't force it, just come down with it, right? So the second thing, so now that he has his feet proper position, he's cutting the bar off of the toes, I want to talk about his core. Okay, so that's one thing that a lot of people don't talk about. They talk about the back because that's where a lot of injuries happen. We can get away with a lot of things that we're going to experience because of the belt, because it actually compresses. But if you don't know how to actually actively compress without the belt, then you're going to hurt yourself. So when he goes down, like just what I mentioned, that people focus on what it looks like and not what it's actually doing. So when he's in the bottom, he's trying to keep his spine as straight as possible, and his mind he thinks is looking like, so he's actually rotating his hips back like this. So that might look like a great position if I was a Fitspo model, like a girl or something, because my ass is all poked back, but this is a bad position for me. I made my arms longer and I made my core longer. Core longer means core weaker, so I want to compress that, right? So if I were to just come and sock this fool like that, right? It was all soft right here. So compress again. So now he's tight. So from this position, I don't want any type of rotation when I come down. So if I ever see someone come down like this, they're doing it wrong. So that's rotation. This is rotation. So next time when you come down, squeeze your core and then only release. I'm gonna touch you, no homo. Right here, your hip flexor, I want you to release from this point, okay? Don't rotate this back. Release from this and then come down, okay? Let your chest drop with you. Squeeze your core. Good. Tuck your chin. Good, so then now, if I look back here, from his mind, when he thought he was rotating his hips back, there was a big gap right here. I could see there's too much anterior pelvic tilt. That's actually causing more pressure. So this is the one main thing I'll say. Rotation causes more pressure than flexion. So flexion is actually like the cat, I call it a scared cat, like this. You're actually safer that way than you are through rotation. So he's in a better position now because he's actually neutral. This is a neutral position. A lot of people think the neutral position is actually rotation. So do 2 reps like that. See, he's a little bit younger and he's adapted to a couple of like bad habits, so he still wants to rotate. So I'll have to work with him on that. But when I'm in this bottom position, like a lot of people talk about the quads and taking the rib cage down. So we'll work with him on that, but just getting that quick overview of what the core needs to happen. So do it again. So core tight. So if the whole time, even before at the beginning, right? I'm gonna suck you. Good. So this whole time, squeeze your core like that, right? When you squat down, all right? So as he squats down, don't think that you have to stay upright, right? Keep your chest down here. So in the bottom position, you want the pressure to feel exactly through balance, through the leg, through the foot, right here. So when you see a lot of old school deadlifters say that they want to put the pressure in the heels, that's actually really incomplete because you're actually just taking a whole group out. So you don't want to take your quads out of the movement. The quads fire off the bottom. So you see people that have like their hips like this in a deadlift, that's all hamstrings. You might get to a certain point that way and it might be strong, but you'll be much stronger once you distribute the weight and you actually put your quads in that movement. Because that stuff actually explodes off the floor. And if you're actually doing a vertical jump, that's where that comes from. So now, so everything's balanced. Okay, so you want your shoulders down a little more. Squeeze this right here. So you see how his shoulders are slightly over. So conventional is a lot different than sumo. You want this angle right here. You want this biomechanically stronger. There's more leveraging. So go down, do 3 reps now. Good. One more. Alright, so it's starting to get a little bit better. As every set gets better and better, but now we're moving up. So our foundation obviously is our feet. So we're gonna move up, 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 up. So the two little things that he did wrong, well, the one main one is the misconception of how you engage your shoulder blades. Okay, I know a lot of like CrossFitter coaches. If you come from an Olympic weightlifting background, that's a really big scapular retraction. Is a huge thing for deadlifts and Olympic weightlifting. But in a deadlift, it's not. You're making your leverages really shitty because you're actually pulling back and you're making your arms short. We want long arms. This fool has, that's why I call him the slot. Look how long his arms are. This thing is good. So we want to use it. If he has good leverages, we want to use it. So you saw in those last 2 reps that when he was pulling himself back down, pulling the slack out, we'll talk about that too, but when he pulls the slack out, he's actually retracting his shoulders back and flexing like that. We don't want to do that. You actually engage muscles naturally. 0.02 seconds is actually how fast you engage muscle groups, so you don't have to actively squeeze them like that. That's like a big misconception. You want to say it as beginners because you just want to get that mind to muscle connection, but for him, he's been doing it for a little bit longer, so when you're going, you want to keep your traps relaxed, and all we really worry about is elbow position. So if I'm in here, I have a jacket on, but my elbows are out like this, then I'm not going to be able to engage my lats. All you really need to do is turn your elbows back, and then they automatically engage. Big Boy does it naturally. You actually see him when he does his deadlift, he comes down, and he's actually turning his elbows back into him and actually makes him sit upright without actually having to pinch his shoulder blades back. So it's not like a bench press or like a squat or anything. You don't want to pinch this back. So the first thing that you'll see, like if someone does that, is that, which he has the problem with too sometimes, is that back will unlock right when you pull, and then it becomes a straight leg deadlift. So here, we're trying to teach him, we'll see how receptive he is to it, but relax. It's hard to actually really teach this after they've been taught a certain way. So same thing, squeeze your core now. Squeeze, everything's good, I'm gonna sock. All right, squat down. Good. So I don't want you to squeeze any of this shit. That's naturally gonna engage, right? So I just want you to keep tight on the bar and then just turn your elbows back. Now what you wanna do this last part is you wanna push your feet down a little bit, like almost like you wanna push your feet 2 inches down into the ground. Okay, so that's what keep that tightness is, and that's what keeps your arms long, right? So when you do it, right before you go, I wanna hear this little clicking sound. I want to push my feet down, like almost like I'm trying to stand up without having to stand up, okay? So just push to the floor, just keep a little tightness there. So you see the slack came up, and now go, okay? When you come back down, go. Right there, don't do anything. Now go right back up. See, now he's in a perfect position. Okay, go right down. Good. A lot of the times what happens is we come with repetitions, we get inconsistent with the repetition. So you saw those first couple of steps that he did it, and he would pull his hips back, and he'd pull them back underneath, and he would do the wrong thing again. So those repetitions have kind of ingrained in his brain, but now that I actually had him go down, sit there, your body will go where it's powerful at. You felt better doing it, right? So your body feels comfortable in a powerful position, so when he went back down, he was powerful. Then he went back up, and he's powerful. Then he went back down, but if he were to take his hips back, and then put him back through, then he would create that bad situation again, all right? So let's do that one more time. Same thing, so go through that checklist. Now it's a lot of things. Good, so we're relaxing the shoulders, make sure they're long, make the leverage good. So even this right here, don't flex that. Relax this. Okay, so rib cage is tight, hold down. Good, elbows, good, just like that. Now don't do anything, go again. Good. One more time. You see how we're like a force of habit, you wanted to do it, right? He kept trying to pull his hips back. So even though I'm telling him to do that, if you do it 100 times, muscle memory is 500 times. So if he's done this for 3 years, he might be a little bit newer to lifting, but 3 years is muscle memory. So he wanted to actually do that even when I told him not to do it, right? So it's a force of habit, but if you ever want to know what your proper position is, take it from the top, take it as slow as possible. I call it eccentric. Take it as slow as you can, and then your body will show you where it needs to be, okay? So if I'm coming down, my knees will naturally bend, and then once I get to the bottom, that's actually the perfect position. If you actually take a picture or a video of that, then you can study that position, okay?
Alright, so still warming up. Not gonna warm up, I'm not gonna go too heavy today. Maybe 5 plates, it's a deload week. But as you can see, whether I have 1 plate on or 2 plate, and you'll continue to see 3, 4, 5, I'm gonna keep the same form and tempo as I would do if I was gonna go for 8 plates. And like Chris was saying, that the more repetitions you have, the more your muscle and mind-body connection there will be. So it'll create like a better habit. But yeah, so I'm sure Chris is gonna explain this better, but I know that as you increase the weight, you start to lose form because maybe certain body parts are weaker than others. So if your legs are maybe weaker, your ass will pop up and you're gonna use more back. Maybe if your back is weaker, you're gonna try to use more legs and your form might not be well. I don't really know like the terms, but I'm sure Chris will go over it. But I know that's the main thing. So if you're just learning and beginning, make sure you drill the form, whether you have a 25 on or you have 135, 225, make sure you're always drilling the same form to keep your body in the same like in the same path. You want to do the same path over and over so your body can get used to it. But anyways, I'm gonna have Topo take over because this is his specialty on teaching. I'm not a very good teacher. I can do it, I can be hands-on, but I'm not the best teacher and explaining it well. So we got Chris right here, and I'm sure Jason's form's gonna switch up a little bit because he's not as strong as me, and 225 might feel heavier to him, and maybe his form will change, So I'm sure Chris is gonna critique that. So here we go.
All right, so like Big Boy talked about, it's about routine, doing it the right way every time, those add up. What's funny is when the camera turned off, we talked about how I've actually studied Big Boy for like 3 or 4 years. I've been training for like, what, 2 years now? 2-ish years? Well, from the second US Open? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so like maybe 2 years. But ever since we started training, I like to watch, that's how I learn, is I watch. So like as watching him and people go along, you actually solidify those things that happen in your head. That's saying like, that's how an elite athlete works out. And they don't know why they do it, they just do it, and that's why they're successul. So when we talk about it is taking as many factors out as possible, because then if there's not as many, you won't make as many mistakes. So there's less margin for error. So when I teach for beginner lifters, even like veteran lifters, is have a routine every single time. If you watch Big Boy walk up to the bar, he does the same thing every time. He might get like hyped up differently, or people might get hyped up differently, but when they come to the bar, it's the same exact routine every single time. You know what I mean? Coming up, doing their little routine, and then going down and pulling the bar how they pull it. We talked about the elbows back. That was a big thing we talked about when the camera turned off. So having Jason come in, he's a little bit newer. He's still done it. He's done like 3 or 4 competitions. Yeah. 4? 2. So having 2 competitions, a little bit lighter on the experience. So we want to drill that routine. One thing I worked a lot with Bruce when you hit that 600-pound bench press was routine, because if you don't, sometimes you overthink things, and we don't want that. So you see people come up to the bar, they start getting all high fucking slapping themselves, they take more time, and now they're trying to think that they have to do more than they actually have to do the weight, and that's not the case. If you have good technique, a good routine, then you worked your ass off during your training cycle, the weight should be there as long as you have a good coach that puts the number on the board, right? So we want to work on a routine, so every single time it looks exactly the right thing, the right way, okay? So we're come up, even with warm-ups, because this is where we get our repetitions at. So we just went over his form, so you do what you remember what I taught you, okay? Go, the whole thing, 3 reps. See how receptive Jason was, like from the first actual warm-up set with 135 to that was 30 or 40 times better than what it was at the beginning. So having a routine in his mind now actually made it simpler for him, and it makes it for everybody. So one thing that I always got from Big Boy that I thought was the coolest thing in the world is that he treats 135 like how he treats 900 pounds. So when you come down, it looks like he's about to throw this fucking weight through the roof, and he's coming down, he's going slow, and then he explodes up. That's the type of repetitions that actually transfer over to muscle memory. So when you're doing your, because you have to think about it, if you have working sets, or I don't even know if you'll follow a program, if you're in a program, there's only a few working sets, a few top sets, but you do every day almost 8 to 10 warm-up sets. And some people do 5 reps, some people do 10 reps. So if you're doing the wrong reps every single time, right, and if you're younger, you're creating horrible habits for yourself. And then it takes someone like me to identify it, then kind of go back, and then break all those habits, and then it becomes a big learning curve that comes with it. So you're basically putting 6 months of training just to correct that bad habit. So when you come with the bar, make sure that you know exactly what your routine is, don't overthink it. Have those key points like cutting off the toes, squeezing my core, hinging from the hips and not rotating. And then when I get down in my position, I'm putting my elbows back and I'm not actually squeezing my scapula. Those are probably 3 or 4 of the just more basic things I teach. Obviously I go really in depth with like pit bulls like sumo and like the squat form, but as long as you have those basic foundational things, keep building on them. And if you have a watchful eye, then you can make critiques as you go along on leverages. Like with him, he has a shorter torso and longer arms, so we can play with his hip position, so he can distribute that weight a little bit better. Right?
Okay, so I went over my form on lifting. Chris went over how he taught his form to Jason and kind of what he teaches. Basically similar things. It's just he has, just a crazy explanation of how he does it, because he knows all the terms and all the movements in your body. I don't. I just kind of learn hands-on. So I hope you guys learn, and as we continue to lift, we're gonna keep lifting and keep increasing the weight, and maybe you'll see he'll keep on teaching. But the next thing I'm gonna teach and that he'll teach will be your grip, you know? That's the next thing. You know, you get your form down, you drill it like he's saying, like I was saying. Make sure you treat any weight as your max, you know? So no matter if it's light or heavy, make sure you have that muscle memory. And what do you call it, Chris, when you come up to the bar? Yeah, you have your routine. You know, just like with me, with football, I've said this before, I would drill how I would tackle, how I would go and, you know, take this person down, whatever my steps to rush in. I would drill that shit in my head over and over, not just before I come lift, but even on my spare time, I would just think how I was gonna just lay this fool out, you know what I mean? And same with deadlift, or any lift, I drill that shit in my head, like, all right, I'm gonna get my feet in position, my core tight, you know, I'm gonna tighten my whole body up and just, you know, do the whole thing. I play that shit in my head like a play. So make sure you're doing that. But anyways, the next thing will be the grip. For me, I'm pretty tight. My shoulders and my arms, everything is pretty tight. So I used to do the over-under, but now I do double overhand and I do the hook grip. It's kind of like a thing that mostly sumo deadlifters do because they're in an awkward position, but I do conventional conventional, what is it? Conventional hook grip. So kind of this is how you do it right here. Basically just gonna be a normal grip. That'd be a normal grip, you know? And you know, you just grip it as tight as possible. But a hook grip, you're putting your thumb first, and then you're gripping your middle finger and your index finger onto your thumb. So you're just locking this bitch in. So when you lift, it ain't going nowhere. You know, it's basically like you're clamping that shit on, you know? It hurts, I'll tell you that. That shit really hurts. But as long as you can take the pain, that grip ain't going nowhere. So that's what I do. So I set up, do my routine, I get on the bar, and I go directly into that hook grip. So if you're, I don't know, I guess if your grip is weaker and you can't hold on to the bar, then you might want to try hook grip. Maybe if you have larger hands, will be a good reason for hook grip. And also if you're tight like me and you can't really do over under, hook grip is good for you because you're in a real neutral position, I guess. And it feels a lot more comfortable. So anyways, try that out. And we'll have Chris talk about over under and a little bit of hook grip because I'm sure he has more knowledge than me. So let's get it.
All right, Big Boy went over hook grip, so I'll touch on it a little bit, but he kind of covered basics. It's pretty straightforward. It's mostly for Ollie lifters and sumos, like he said. What it does is actually keep your hands forward, it was pronated, so that your arms are as long as possible. That's the biggest tool for that. Once I pull my hand underneath the over-under, so I supine that hand, it actually raises my shoulder up a little bit because, especially if you're tight too, because it'll actually pull on your rotator cuff. So that's why people actually like doing that. If you have the thumbs to do it, and you have the pain threshold like to really go through it, Big Boy has like a huge pain threshold. I used to do that shit and it like, I tapped out. It was like just too much. Having like 750 in my hand like that, I'm good. I'll do over under or straps. So when you go, like he just said, you're pulling the thumb underneath, and then you're trying to get as many fingers as possible on there. The more the better. I have big hands, but I have short thumbs. So when I get underneath, I can get to not as deep as Big Boy can, but just to my second finger. So when you do that, once you get to this position, what you do is you actually crank the bar forward so you stack your wrist. So that actually locks the thumb in right here. So when I used to do Olympic weightlifting, that was a huge deal for them because you don't want the bar to slip in your hands when you're actually trying to produce power. So that's why a lot of people use straps too. This guy is a fucking freaking nature. He has the hands of an ape. So look how big his hands are. So let me see. Look at this guy. I'm significantly bigger than him. He almost has the same size hands as me. We just talked about how it makes his little baby carrot look smaller. So we're gonna in the position. When we talk about hand position, I wanted to wait till we actually went over it specifically. When you talk about leverages, biomechanically, moment arms, like leverage points, you don't want to go too wide, you don't want to go too narrow because you can't engage your lats. So you want to actually be able to pull your elbows back in that position. So when I look right here, when I'm going, I just want to push straight down. It's almost like I want to touch the side of my knees right here. So if I were to like, say stand up, try to touch the side of my knees without bending my legs. Like when I did that, my arms got longer and then my lats engaged and then my elbows are back, okay? So in this position, when I squat down, wherever those hands lie, with me naturally squatting in that tight position I taught Jason earlier, is actually where you want your hands to be. Because the biggest thing that people, actually I have a lot of athletes that I had to like change with this too, is that they try to do too much with their arms. You gotta think about your arms like cables. Like there's like 2 cables with no muscle on it, with 2 hands on it, right? So they're just there to aid in what your body's trying to do. If you start using your arms, then you start getting torn biceps, shit like that. That's like nightmare stuff that you don't want to deal with. So when you come down, hands to the side. So this is, you don't have to do this as your routine. It's just more learning where it's at. Then once you're done learning where your hands need to be, then you can create your routine. So we'll do that same thing I just said. Squat down. So first, stand up. First thing is pull your elbows back like that, and then try to touch your knees without bending your legs. Like push it down, like push it down. So right there, that's what I'm talking about. This is a good way to learn how to engage your lats the proper way, and without having to actually pull your shoulders back. So when you try to touch your knees right here, my arms got longer and my leverages got better. but I'm not having to do this, which that's the biggest misconception about deadlifts. So do that again. So you see when he did that, his chest actually flexed and his lats flexed so they could stabilize the shoulder joint. So that if we can achieve that in the bottom position and the lockout position, then our arms are as long as possible. And you see some crazy deadlifters with long arms that they can deadlift a lot because they figured that shit out. All right, so do the same thing. Now squat down and then put your hands where it naturally feels like they need to be. Okay? So now his arms are as long as possible without having to compromise width. All right? So we'll do 2 reps like this. Good, so this might be a warm-up for me and Big Boy right now, but this is actually not like a warm-up for him. It's actually his 1 rep max is 405 with a belt, with straps. So for us to take him through this beltless with an overhand like that is pretty intense, so and actually impressive too. So you see how when his hands were over the top, he actually just did a full-blown like just crazy overhand grip, which is nuts. It's hard for me to do at this way too. So what we're gonna talk about now is actually over-under. So if I just look at my hands like this, I'm tight like Big Boy is, so when I pull his hand over, you see my shoulder wanna flex with that. So that's the biggest problem. A lot of times it creates an imbalance. So sometimes you see people actually come up and they shift with their hand as they come up. You see that, and then you see people actually tear their biceps because they're supinating their hand. It makes this vulnerable right here, the biceps, especially if you do a lot of curls and a lot of bro shit. So we'll do the same thing with you, but hands same thing. Now turn this other hand over, whichever way you're dominant. So your dominant hand is usually over the top because that's where it feels weakest at. So you don't want to put that underneath and make it weak. So your weakest hand is underneath, like that. So the reason why this is so good for the grip is because you think about 2 forces meeting each other, and that actually, those 2 forces meeting each other actually creates force in the hands. When you're right here, biomechanically, the only thing that has room to go is backwards, and so the hands are pushing forward. So I could pull that to my body, but that's still a force that's gonna roll out the back of the hand like that. So when I do this, pull them together, go down. Same thing. So there's a technique that a lot of people use that's called a Indian burn grip. So that's a good way to actually find out how your hands are supposed to be tight on there. So when you go, grab a little bit more than you should, like if you're just gonna grip it. And then right when you're down in this position, Indian grip the bar, like if you're about to, if I was gonna do this on your arm, like your little sister did that shit when you're little. So turn it together, and then usually most of the time it stacks the wrist. So when I see that, I wanna have a stack on the wrist, stack on the elbows, and then that's gonna be arms are straight down, relaxed, okay? So you see how you're kinda like curling this a little bit? Relax this part. So the only thing you should be flexing is that and then your hand, okay? So that's the biggest problem, that people try to do too much with those hands and they start flexing, they start like trying to bring that body like a row almost, and that thing will just like snap, and we've seen it way too many times. So we'll do 2 reps again, just like that. Good. So see like how big of a difference this is making for him. This form actually looks like 30 times better than the last time. So it looked better from the first, and now it's actually looking the best it is now. He's actually keeping his shoulders relaxed now. He's not actually pulling it back. And actually that grip actually pretty good because he has good flexibility. So if you have great flexibility with your rotator cuff, this won't be a problem for you. But the biggest thing with big guys like us, you see them have like the power to do the weight, but then when they get to the top, it just slips. Because it's hard to get this pinky around on that side. So if I'm right here, what you want to focus on if you're a big guy is that when I'm in my bottom position, to really push this pinky to the bar. If not, it's going to be slightly off the bar, and that's the weakest part of your hand. So obviously it's the smallest part. So if you don't know how to get this around and how to engage this more posterior part of your hand, then it's just going to start slipping, and once it starts going, it's going to leave. It's going to drop no matter what. So like I said, I'll go over the points is that make sure you know how to engage your lats the proper way standing up, so that when you go down in the squat position, you want to make the leverages as good as possible and your arms as long as possible. All right, so we'll start warming up and kind of show you how that translates over to bigger weight.
Okay, so we went over pretty much to the form, the setup, the routine that you should have, and now the grip. So now it's just putting it together. and I'm gonna do a few reps with this. I'll probably go to 5 plates, and you can kind of just see, you've probably seen me do it a million times, but now there's an explanation on it. So here it is. How many should I do? Just like two? Two?
Not a lot, yeah.
What's up, heavy hitters? So we went through our first and many more to come instructional videos. We got Coach Topo in the house, and he went over in big detail how we perform the deadlift. I gave my explanation first, just from a hands-on experience base, what do you call it, instructions. Like basically hands-on, how I learned. No experience in any kind of technical or degree or college work or studies, just basically hands-on is how I learned. And I definitely had bad form in the beginning, which I had to learn myself. I never had a coach. And then also with Chris, he kind of critiqued little things, but for the most part, I kind of learned hands-on and
100%.
critique myself. But with Chris, he has a lot of knowledge. So with me, you guys may not want to take my word for it. I have no experience, you know, or I don't want to say I have no experience. I have no book smart in it. I don't know any technical terms or things like that. But Chris, on the other hand, he knows all the terms. He has his degree to back him up. And you really can't say shit to him. You know, you can say shit to me, but you can't say shit to Chris. So what did you kind of go over today, Chris, like in your terms, and also say things so the viewers can learn and it not be like a foreign language? Because for me, it's even a foreign language, and I do this, you know?
One thing, touch on what he's saying, kind of talking about how the degree to him not having a degree, we want to give like two perspectives, like
Exactly.
And show you that it doesn't have, you don't have to have the education to be successful. I didn't meet Big Boy until about 3 or 4 years ago, but he had already had a successful stint before even meeting me. So to see that he came from that, and it's all about trial and error. I mean, if something doesn't feel right, change it. and then keep going, then change it a little more. Like, that's the reason why he's so successful, because he's able to identify in his mind what was wrong. I didn't feel comfortable, I didn't feel powerful, then he keeps changing. Even to this day, he'll tell me, like, I didn't feel powerful in that position, I'm gonna change my feet up a little bit. I mean, when you're that type of person and you identify those things, you're gonna be successful. So don't think because you don't have an education or don't have a certification or a bachelor's that you're not gonna be successful, because you can be. We just wanna give two perspectives. I know the terms, he knows what to do, but he just doesn't know how to explain it with the words that I can. So that's what makes the book smarts good. But that doesn't necessarily, on the other side too, doesn't make you successful either. But just to go over the things that we went over today, just kind of like the four or five main points. The feet positions, how to cut off those toes with the bar. The biggest reason behind that is just kind of push your shins forward. That's basically all it is. You don't want to be doing stiff leg deadlifts. You see a lot of people, that's how they start out. It's a gray area, so you have to give a little to get a little. So you want to push your knees forward a little bit. Let a little bit of room for the shins. That'll set your hips down a little bit. That second thing is that we went over the core. The core is like a whole, like I told people, I could talk about that for hours. There's so many variables that go in the core. The one thing that we just didn't touch on was how to breathe. So obviously you have to break. In order to brace, you have to take a good deep breath in. I could talk about different breathing patterns, how to engage your obliques, but that'll be a whole different video. But just breathe, clamp down your rib cage, make sure that that core is nice and thick. The analogy that I like to use is just using a Coke can. If I have a Coke can, I crack it open, I can pour it out, I can squeeze it and crush it. If I take that Coke can, and I actually shake it, I try to poke a hole in it, I can't because it's so hard. Right? That's how your core has to be. It has to be short, stocky, and almost like you have like carbonation in there that you want to be compressed. All right? So that's where power's at. That'll make sure that those variables won't actually make it so that you're failing or crumbling or anything like that. Right? Went over the shoulders, how to put your hands down, how to engage your lats, how to not over contract. That's the biggest thing. Over contractions. That's probably one of the number one thing that I fix with people when they say my back hurts, I'm engaging my back the right way. And then the first thing I see is that the shoulders unlock, lower back, everything's in the lumbar. So apply those like little things like that, and with the hands. So try it's trial and error, like what I talked about with Big Boy. If you like hook grip, if you like having your arms a little bit longer, and you're able to gauge your lats better, it kind of makes your body and your hips a little bit more even too. Play around with it. I used to do both, so I tried both, and I realized that hook grip isn't for me. I don't like having my thumb about to explode. So, and with him, actually, you don't have to train it as much. So that's why on training cycles, I'll have him do straps up until the week of, because hook grip doesn't have to be as utilized during training, only to just desensitize the thumb. But this fool's done so much fighting and shit. He's desensitized his hands and shit, his thumbs, so he doesn't feel anything in his thumbs like as much as he used to. So he doesn't even have to train them up until those last 2 or 3 deadlifts. For someone like Jason or me, I would have to go back in and just really desensitize those thumbs. There's a lot of nerves that run up in right there. Over under, so like the benefits of that and the cons. So if you pull it under, your biceps more susceptible to be torn. Your shoulder actually retracts a little bit more, so it makes your arm shorter. So there's a little imbalance right there. If you want to even that out, then try both. Flip back and forth between the both. Sometimes you actually see guys with bigger traps on one side because that's all they do is that. You know what I'm saying? So you saw that from the beginning of when I started warming up, I did over under because like I told you guys in the instructional video, like prior to this, routine is everything. So whatever day, if I know that I'm actually gonna work up with that grip, I will start out with that grip. So I warm up the bicep, I warm up the shoulder, so it relaxes a little bit better, so I can put it in a better position. That's the biggest thing that, after talking about that now, is routine. So make sure you guys, what I reiterated before, to routine, same thing every single time. Just like saying with Big Boy, he does things every single time because that's why he's successful. And he didn't know why I was doing it, he just knew that meant that he was doing really good reps. Watch how slow we take those lighter weights. Take advantage of those lighter weights because that's where you can perfect your form, and actually that shit translates over to your bigger weights. It won't do it right away. Like I said, there's a learning curve, but keep practicing, and then once it comes muscle memory after 500 repetitions, then it'll start coming. The biggest number I always tell people is it takes 10,000 repetitions to become a master at something. We probably just hit that number, like if we did still, and that's 10,000 good repetitions. So keep drilling it, take advantage of those lighter weights because we can expedite that process by 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 years even if you do it right and you do a lot of it. So take those things seriously. If you saw Jason warm up, he was just 135, like, okay, here we go. And then once I actually like identified it with him, he took it slower. So I know that you newer like lifters just want to get it over with, do all that shit, but take your time. Because the veterans, that's what they do. That's what it takes to be successful.
Yep, exactly. All right, so we went through how I did it, how I performed the deadlift, my steps. Chris went through a huge explanation how he achieves a deadlift. And now we, you know, so you guys can hear a different perspective and maybe a more novice experience of how we taught it. We're gonna have Jason, you know, kind of tell us what he thought and how he adapted and learned from Chris's teaching. So, Jason, we'll ask you a few questions. Well, Chris will, you know?
So I kind of put Jason on the spot. We actually didn't even tell him we were actually gonna do that, what we did to him. I just told him to get on the deadlift bar. I wanted to be as organic as possible because I actually do coach Jason now, so I want him to actually get better that way.
Well, before we mention Jason, like, tell us about the heavy hitter training program and the dead game training program, you know, because if you guys want to learn more and you guys really like this, you can get taught by, you know, by the heavy hitters themselves. That's what we have this program, and it's completely custom and catered to you guys. And Chris will kind of tell you a little more.
We actually kind of like, me and Big Boy sat down and actually created this through when we started doing the American, was the US Open?
Yeah.
So the US Open, we wanted to offer something that, you know, could actually excel our followers. Since you guys are so loyal to us, we want to make sure that we take care of everyone that, you know, that supports us. So we created a system that most people don't have. So it's like a very intricate system with volume and everything like that that's fully customized to you guys. So just to hear a little insight of how we do things and how we work, you see how intricate we are with how we do things. The program is just like that. That was my like forte through college and like the science behind it. So putting Big Boy's input for how he felt during a training cycle, fatigue-wise, fatigue management, to like just volume-wise, that all matters, and that's what's customized. So if you just get like a regular program, well, $10.99 for this fucking program, then
get what you paid for.
Exactly, you're getting what you're paying for, and most of the time people can't adapt to that. They can't even like do that type of volume that they're putting anyways. Like bench pressing or deadlifting 6 times a week, there's a lot of science that goes behind that, and we're able to call bullshit on that pretty quickly because we have gotten to that level, coached at that level, and been athletes at that level. So check out that program. We spent
Jason's on it right now, right?
He's actually doing it right now. So you guys
give him some kind of feedback. You know? So we're gonna give you some hands-on feedback. You know, Jason's been on the heavy hitter program for size and strength. He has no competition coming up, and we want his honest feedback. You know, because he's been on another program for a few years now, huh? Mm-hmm. And now he's been on the heavy hitter program for how long?
4 weeks.
For 4 weeks. So what's your feedback on it, man? As a kind of a novice, intermediate lifter, well, how do you feel on it? How do you feel on the program? How's your body feel?
Honestly, I feel so much stronger, so much bigger. I feel way more rested. You know, I'm not coming in here, you know, hurting. I feel like I want to come in here and I'm ready. Like the week is just ready to go. I'm ready.
I mean, like, just point on that too is that a lot of people take pride in like feeling fucked up, like beat up and shit. There's a time and place for that, but you want to make sure that you're able to perform at a high level. Just watching him over the last couple of weeks, because obviously it's our gym, watching him move weight that he's never moved before at a high pace, doing working sets with his old maxes. That's the type of stuff that like you really see leaps and bounds with how important programming is, because sometimes you just feel beat up and you feel like you're getting stronger, but you're not because you're overtraining. So watching him go over that and actually seeing those aha moments, because we only get a few of those in our lifting careers, it's actually really beneficial. As a coach, it's beneficial too, you know, watching it happen. Just to get a little more insight on like how it is, because it's kind of hard just looking at it like, oh, there's a program, like we don't know anything about it. So how did you feel like it was easy to understand? When I write it, when it was written down, does it look like complicated or what?
No, it was really straightforward. You know exactly what you're doing, and it's written. So I'm like the same way Big Boy is. I don't know the big words, but the way that Chris is writing it, it's straight to it. You know exactly what he's talking about. You know exactly what you have to do.
So basically, he's saying it just cuts the bullshit. A lot of the
fitness you don't even have to think, right?
Yeah.
You just look at the program and you go lift. Yeah. It's cutting out that. Like before, maybe you have to think what you're going into the gym. Now what do you do?
Now I just go there. I look at the program. I know exactly what I'm doing. I know exactly what the weight is, how many sets, how many reps, how long I have to rest for. it's straight there for it.
And what do you get, a new program every week?
Yeah,
or?
it's a new program every week, but every day is just different, and you're doing different things. It's just
that's what one thing people probably don't understand is that weight will be specific to you. Like you don't have to do any thinking. Like you look at the weight and be like, okay, that's the weight I have to do right there. So
you don't have to calculate anything.
No, it's right on the paper for you. So that's why it's so customized exactly to what you're doing.
Does it help you, like, how does it help you going into every workout, like knowing what you're doing? How does that help?
It's a lot better because before I would be going into the gym and I would be here and I wouldn't even know what I'm gonna do yet. I would just still be like waiting. But now, like, I know, like, when I wake up in the morning, it's the first thing I check. All right, what am I gonna hit today at the gym?
So you prepare your body and mind, huh, before? Yeah. That's dope.
And then one thing is when you buy it, you actually get like a technique manual. So I have to go through reason why we use those techniques and why it makes you more powerful. So you guys all get that. So the second you buy it, boom, it gets shot to you. So take advantage of that too.
Cool. Anything else you want to add?
Nah, it's just, I mean, honestly, go out and get that, just get the damn program.
Yeah.
It's so much, like, for doing it for 3 years and then doing this for like 4 weeks, 4 weeks to pass anything that I learned in 3 years.
That's dope. Hell yeah. All right, guys. So, you know, looking forward to doing these videos every week and spitting some knowledge on you guys. And hey, just like you guys, I'm learning from Chris too, man. Dopo knows this shit ins and out, you know. So I'm actually tuning in and learning as we go along too. I may give my own experience and what I've learned over all the years of training, but there's a lot of things I still don't know that Chris knows, and I'm learning, and I can't wait to learn. So make sure you guys tune in, heavy hitters. Every week we'll be dropping it, and just appreciate the love and support. Make sure you guys comment on what movements you guys want to learn too. So much love.
Yep.